Hello, everybody. I am here with the legendary Udo Erasmus, and I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this show for weeks. And Udo, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Nairobi Health Show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
To be honest, the first thing I want to bring up is I'm surprised that you're even still doing this. I mean, you've lived an incredible life. You're very successful. You're famous. You've sold hundreds of thousands of books. You have products sold all around the world. And here you are, willing to show up, not just on my show. You do hundreds of interviews. You show up for what I can tell a whole lot of people. Why are you still doing this? And you don't need to,
Well,
but here you are.
What should I do instead?
I don't know. You
No,
could be
you know
doing
what?
anything.
For me, and I think I'm very clear about this. I feel so cared for by life that it's not about me anymore. So the question for me is always, what needs to be done? Where can I help?
Wonderful.
Or how can I make the biggest splash for good in the time that I have?
And so that's what you're
what my
doing.
driver is.
Okay, I love it. Well, for those of you that don't know Udo's story, and it is fascinating, by the way, at the end, he'll give us his website, and you've got to read. There's an About Us section where his life story is there, and it's absolutely amazing. But I'm going to give you a snippet of it, and then we'll jump into some questions. Udo is a pioneer of the health and wellness industry, having created flax oil and the healthy fats movement. He's also the co-founder of Udo's Choice supplement brand, a global leader in cutting-edge health products, which has sold tens of millions of bottles of healthy oils, probiotics, and digestive enzymes. He's an accomplished author, including the book Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. You've probably heard of that. Sold hundreds of thousands of copies. He has extensive education in biochemistry and biology, a master's degree in counseling psychology from Adler University, and has impacted over 5 million lives by passionately conducting 5,000 plus live presentations, 3,000 plus media interviews, 1,500 staff trainings, been in over 40 countries. What a resume.
I'm sorry, that's how it went. Right?
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Tell us a couple other highlights. I mean, you've lived such an interesting life. I think you have just a fascinating backstory with so many zigs and zags, not just in health. Tell our listeners a little bit more about your life experience.
Okay, I came out of the Second World War. I was 2.5 years old. We were refugees fleeing out of Poland into Germany. My parents were from Latvia, Estonia. So they had gone from Latvia to Poland, then from Poland to Germany. The communists chasing us in tanks and trucks. It was winter. I was 2.5 years old. And we were fleeing on roads, dirt roads, in horse-drawn hay wagons, mostly women with young children. My mother had 6 children, 6 and under in tow. And the Allies were using us as target practice, shooting at us from planes. These are the good guys, right?
Yeah.
And so it was very chaotic. The beginning was very chaotic. And somehow because I saw how bad it can get, there's always been this impulse in me. How can we make it better? What can I do to make something better? It doesn't matter what it is, but I want to make it better. Right? It's all, and I think part of it is it's actually becomes wisdom because, if you don't make effort when things are good to make it better, you'll begin to drift, and drift is always downhill. And the reason why, for instance, there was a Second World War is because the people who were living were not cultivating peace and contentment in their life. And so then they did other things. Right? And so I came out of that and it was chaotic, and I was always trying to figure out how things work because in chaos, you don't know how things work. So I got into science and then I got, to figure out how things work. Then bioscience, how creatures work, then psychology, how thinking works, then medicine for health, how health works. But in medicine, it was only about disease. They don't have a definition of health. They just patch you up. It's all symptom management, crisis management, symptom suppression, and all of that. And I left after a year and went back into biochemistry and genetics because in life sciences, you learn about health, because it's the normal functioning of normal creatures in normal situations. And then I was still looking for something and I couldn't find it at university. So I left university and got into self-knowledge because
Now,
I realized,
where were you? Give us an idea of year and country when where you're doing this.
okay, well, so the university studies were mostly at the University of BC in Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, UBC.
Yeah, we went from Latvia to Poland to Germany, Germany to Canada.
I'm
I
from
was
British
10 when we
Columbia
came to Canada.
originally.
Hmm?
I was a baby when my parents emigrated from England to British
Oh
Columbia
yeah,
to Canada,
yeah.
and I grew up in Kelowna in the interior.
Oh,
Uh,
Kelowna. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I grew up, went to school in Oliver, so we used to. I was on the soccer team, and we
Oh,
played
wow,
Penticton, Kelowna, Vernon. Right, that was like that was
amazing.
the territory, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
that's
went
my
to
old
school
stomping grounds.
in Oliver, and then I came to Vancouver to go to university.
Okay, and then from university, talk
Yeah,
to us about what led you to the interest in oils. Whatever,
yeah,
I mean, I've thought about this as I prepared to interview. I thought, I'm a health geek. I love health. I'm always
yeah,
learning about it, but I'm always learning about what other people discovered. It would never cross my mind to develop something that had never
yeah.
been done before. How did that evolve?
Well, yeah, it came out of it came. Um, I got married. We had 3 kids, and my marriage broke up,
Ah,
and I was livid. I wanted to
mm,
kill something. And I
oh
had
man.
worked as a gardener and had gotten a pesticide applicator license as part of that job. And I was offered a full-time job as a pesticide sprayer. And because I wanted to kill something, this is a perfect job.
Hmm.
No, it's stupid, but I was really upset. I was really upset and I
Right.
was really careless. I walked over the lawns that I had sprayed with weed killer until the skin peeled off the bottom of my feet. Then I wore rubber boots, but it was a summer job, so I did it in a bathing suit. And I liked the tan, because I'm a
Uh-huh.
light skin guy and I wanted to be darker, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
uh, and so I was really careless. And people even said to me, "Aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned?" Nah, I'm immune. I think we call that testosterone poisoning, right?
Right. Yeah.
Young
Yeah.
guys poisoned by their own. I was 38, right? And after 3 years, I got poisoned by the pesticides I sprayed.
Hmm.
I went to the doctor and said, "What do you have for pesticide poisoning?" She said, "Nothing." And that day, it became crystal clear to me that my health is my responsibility,
Ah,
right? Because a doctor gets paid even if you die, right?
right, right.
And they don't have an answer. So then okay, you gotta pay attention to yourself. So of course I stopped spraying pesticides. That was the really stupid thing, right?
Hmm.
And because I had the background in biological sciences, I went into the journals to try and see what health self-help I could do. And I wasn't thinking about water and air because those are important to health. I was thinking
Yeah.
about food because my thought was the body's made out of food. So if something goes wrong, raise the standard of your food, right? Because your body turns over 98% every year, right? So that
Right.
means like if I talk to you next year, this time you'd be a completely different guy. Only 2% of what's present today would still be present, right?
Whole new
So the
set of
body's
cells.
always turning over.
Yeah.
It's a major construction site. So if I raise my standard for what I put for input, if I raise my input standard, then within 1 year, I will have rebuilt 98% of my body to a higher standard. And the
Okay.
same thing if I lower the standard, in a year, I will have rebuilt 98% of my body to a lower standard.
Yeah.
So standard is everything, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that. And so I was looking at everything about health and nutrition, disease and nutrition. And there was like 16 million studies in Medline at the time. And of those, 600,000 were about nutrition. And of those, 30,000 were on fats. And of those, about 6,000 were on essential fatty acids. But I didn't go
Okay.
in there looking for essential fatty acids. I was interested in everything that has to do with health and nutrition.
Uh-huh.
And I got stuck on fats because they were so confusing. For instance, they said omega-6 is an essential nutrient. Essential nutrient means you got to bring it in from outside because your body can't make it, and you have to have it to live and be healthy. And it means if you don't get enough of it, then your health will deteriorate and you'll get symptoms and they'll get worse and they're degenerate in nature. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. These are like the essential building blocks for body construction and energy production, right? And then the third part of the definitions, if you're going down because you're not getting enough of an essential nutrient, but you bring enough back into the diet before you die, then all your symptoms are reversed and you get your health back, because life knows what to do, provided you take responsibility right here at your mouth to make sure that all the essential building blocks life needs to do its job land in the body so it can do it. So I knew that definition. So they said omega-6 is essential. And then there was other research that says omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And I'm going, what? How can something that is essential for health give you cancer and kill you? This is like, you can't have it both ways. And it was that contradiction that got me to look deeper and got me to look into how oils are made. Because the truth is that omega-6 is essential for every cell. But the omega-3 and omega-6, the essential fatty acids, are the most sensitive of all of our nutrients. They're damaged by light very easily, by air very easily, and by heat very easily. They are the most sensitive of our nutrients. They require the most care. We give them the least care. We throw them in the frying pan and then wreck them with light, oxygen, and heat all at the same time.
Now, let me pause you for a minute, because you didn't mention 9. We often talk 3, 6, 9.
That's a standard in the industry, because 3 and 6 are essential. 9 is not.
Okay.
But 9 is in all oils. And actually that started when I was giving a lecture in Ogden, Utah. And somebody came up to me after. He said, I used to take your 3-6 blend, because that's what we used to call it.
Yeah.
But then I found a 3-6-9, so that obviously has more in it. So I stopped using your oil and I'm using that now. Of course, there's a hole in the ceiling where my head went through. Right? And then what happened, because then it became tradition to call them all 3-6-9. But only 3 and 6 are essential by the definition.
Okay.
So omega-6 is essential. And it's damaged by processing, not only in the frying pan, but also by industry, because industry wants shelf life. They don't care about health. They want shelf life, because if you have a long shelf life, you have a big market, potentially.
Right.
So they treat it with Drano, which is sodium hydroxide, very corrosive base. Then they treat it with phosphoric acid, which is a very corrosive acid that's used for washing windows. Sodium hydroxide is used to burn your way through clogged sinks.
Yeah,
right?
wow.
It's called Drano. Drano is what is sodium hydroxide. Very corrosive.
Yeah.
Then they bleach it with bleaching clay, and then that makes it rancid. And now it smells bad. So they have to deodorize the oil, or de-stinkerize it, as I used to say. And that's done at frying temperature. So that oil has already reached frying temperature before it goes in the bottle, before they put it on a shelf, before you buy it. Then you go home and you use it on salads, and you use it in dishes, and you use it for frying. And when you fry oils, you do enormous damage to them. Frying is the dumbest thing that we have ever invented to do in terms of health. The dumbest. And oils are the most sensitive nutrients. So you're going to get the most damage from frying oils, more than frying carbs or frying proteins. But all three of them, if you fry them independent of each other, increase your risk of cancer, inflammation, and cancer, because you're changing molecules from natural that life knows how to deal with. We have a genetic program for it, to molecules that never existed in nature, for which, therefore, life never made a breakdown program. So they pile up in your body, and they're like monkey wrenches into the works. They interfere what's supposed to be going on, and they can't do the job that they're supposed to do. And then slowly, you get sick. Now, the oils that we make, the way industry makes them, they're only about 1% damaged. And so I called the Oil Chemist Society and I said to them, you know this is doing damage to the oil. Why are you doing this? And he said, well, one of the reasons we do it is because we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. And, I inside is go, what? I didn't even know there were pesticides in oils, right? And I had been poisoned by pesticides. So that was like, for me, was a sensitive issue, right? So I asked him, well, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Because then you have no pesticides in the seeds. And maybe he never heard that question, but there was this long silence on the other end of the phone. When he got back, he was mad. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is just 1% damage. It's 99% good. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy. So he was like really into it. And then I backed off and I was like, well, maybe I'm overreacting. So let me do the math. How many damaged molecules are you going to have in a tablespoon of oil that is 1% damaged?
I'm assuming a lot based on the way you framed the question.
Give me a guess.
Oh boy, molecules?
Yeah. How many damaged molecules in a tablespoon of oil that is 1% damaged?
I have no idea. 100,000, a million. I have no idea.
Okay. All right.
Molecules in a tablespoon. I don't even know. It sounds like there's a lot.
Of course. And people don't think about it. This is why I do this. This is perfect. So you said a million was your highest. Right?
Total guess. No idea.
No, I understand. So a million has 6 zeros behind it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like to know how many there are?
Yeah.
A 6 followed by 19 zeros. So that means
wow.
So that means your estimate of how much damage is in that oil is 6 followed by 13 zeros. That would be 1,000, a million, a billion, a trillion. That's 12.
Wow.
Quadrillion is the next one, right? So your
and you're saying
of how
each
much
of
damage,
these.
Sorry.
And you're saying each of these has the potential to do damage in your system.
Yeah. The amount that is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. More than 1 million in a tablespoon. Most people use 2 to 4 tablespoons. And if you put them in the frying pan, you got to multiply that number by probably another factor of 3 to 6, maybe even more.
Okay.
So you're getting an enormous amount of damaged molecules. To change gene expression, you only need 1,000 molecules.
Okay.
Viruses, or not bacteria, only need 2 molecules to change gene expression. Our cells are bigger, so let's say you need 1,000. You probably don't need that many, but 1,000, and you're getting 1 million, over 1 million.
Wow.
And you're getting 1,000 times more than would be required for changing gene expression. And gene expression doesn't change in a good way when you put poison in your cells. It changes in a bad way.
Right. Yeah.
So when I learned that, it was like, I can't get healthy on oils like this. We should make them with health in mind. And so what that requires then is to make a very tight system where from the time the oil is in the seed, protected by the way nature protects oils and seeds, through the pressing, through the filtering, through the settling, through the filling, has to be protected. No light, no oxygen, no heat.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Low temperature. And if you make that system really, really, really tight, you can make oils that aren't damaged by the processing. Now, the industry never did that because when they began 120 years ago, they didn't know some of that stuff, but they've known it. It's been known since the 50s and 60s. So they know. They just never changed because nobody said, and they never told anybody.
So you got the vision.
Yeah.
And
then I thought, yeah.
And then why flaxseed?
Well, so the second part of this, so I can't make oils with health. I can't get healthy on oils like that. We should make them with health in mind. The second thing happened. I got poisoned in 1980. I was in the research in 1981. It was established that omega-3 is also an essential nutrient.
Okay.
That was only established in 1981. That's the
Interesting.
newest member of the essential nutrients. It was known in 1929 for omega-6.
Okay.
Omega-3 was new. And omega-3 is 5 times more sensitive than omega-6 to damage. And there are
Okay.
fewer sources. And it's a nightmare to work with. But
Interesting.
99% of the population doesn't get enough for optimum health of omega-3.
99%.
99%. And
Interesting.
every cell needs them.
Okay.
And when that happened, I was already looking at making oils with health in mind. And then it was like, oh my God, if we could bring back this essential nutrient, if we could optimize people's intake of this essential nutrient, we could help almost everybody. And I got so lit up. It was like, I found a purpose. This is worth doing. This is worth doing. And it was the enthusiasm of that realization that drove that whole project, because I didn't have any business background. I had the academic background, the science background. And because of that inspiration, we made business decisions right and left, starting from scratch, how to build the thing, where to get the seeds, how to bottle it, how to market it. We went on a tour in a van without air conditioning in the US for 101 days in the hottest time of the year, mid-June to mid-September. We ate nothing but raw vegetables after 14 years, because we noticed if we ate carbs, we kind of fall asleep. And if we ate meat, we felt heavy. So we went to raw whole food vegetables, did the whole tour on that. We had energy to burn. We worked all day and drove all night to get from place to place, went to 35 states, 17,000 miles by road, and 85 cities. And started talking about flax. Why flax? Because flax is the single richest source of omega-3s that we have easily available to us. It was being used to make linseed oil to paint furniture. And that paint smell? That's rancid linseed oil. We were making fresh oil for human consumption. And before that, the linseed oil industry, the flax industry, was just making oil, industrial oil for painting furniture. And they made linoleum out of it. That was made out of it. And and the fiber was used, but different kind of flax, the fiber, linen. It comes from linen. Is like linseed, like it's called Linus utis satissimum is the Latin name. Right?
And so flaxseed
that's why flax. Sorry.
At that time, that flaxseed was really just used commercially. It wasn't a dietary product.
No, it was not used in. Yeah, some people had brought it into the food supply as linseed oil, but it was not good oil. And the FDA actually called linseed oil an unsafe food additive, but they had never acted on it.
Interesting.
And I don't know whether they had some deal with the people who were making it or what the reason is, but it was even against their own edict. But then they tried to enforce it when we came with flax oil.
I'll bet that was fun.
It was okay. It was okay. They have a register where they put all their edicts into, right? And then they send it around. And usually what happens is somebody in a health food store gets something from the FDA, and then they tell their friends, and their friends tell their friends, and in a week, the FDA's job is done. Everybody knows, oh my God, the FDA is doing blah, 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 right? What we did was we didn't tell anybody. We didn't tell anybody for the simple reason that we knew that the oil, the way we made it, and with the shelf life we put on it, was good for health.
Yeah.
And so we did our job of promoting it, and we said, let the FDA do their job, but we are not going to help them do their job, because that's their job. And 10 years later, they never actually did anything to us other than they closed the border from Canada to the US. So over Thanksgiving that year, we created plant in Washington State, because then they had to take us to court. But on the border, they have 100% jurisdiction without me having any recourse. So we changed the location. We started in Vancouver, right?
Yep.
And about 10 years later, I talked to one of the FDA commissioners and asked him, how come you never shut us down? He said, well, we tried to. We really wanted to. But you had put a 3-month shelf life on the oil. And the oil was never rancid in the time that you had put on it. It was a nightmare to work with that kind of a shelf life. But
I can understand. I work with shelf.
And then gradually we changed the methods. Now it's like a year. A year is more workable.
It's still difficult. A year is still difficult.
It's still difficult. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, so that's what happened. And we went to all those cities. We talked, honestly, the enthusiasm is what built Flax Oil. We were so on fire. I mean, I was on fire. I was the spokesperson, and I was kind of like the brains behind it. And it was literally came out of, oh my God, we could help so many people with health issues.
And now you have.
Yeah. And it's a pretty big industry. And it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the money. This was not a commercial venture. This was like, and I have a thing about that. So I like it when life gets better, because out of the war, I know how bad it can get. So I like anything that makes life better quality. Count me in, right?
It was a commercial success though, because of that. I mean, you were legitimate in your, even though you weren't the traditional entrepreneur, you weren't going after venture capital, you weren't just trying to come up with a snazzy marketing campaign. You were 100% trying to develop a really great product that was good for people.
Yeah.
And because of that, it was commercially successful.
Well, yeah, no, but I think the advertising was the enthusiasm. People like that kind of energy. And so they were attracted to us, and the doors would open, and everybody wanted to, we'd even hard ask them on people if they wanted to distribute the oil. We do an interview. I'd say, so do you have refrigeration in your storage? If they said no, I would say, are you willing to get it? If they said no, I would say this is a good time to end the interview. If they said yes, I would say, call us when you have it. And if they already had it, then my driver, who was also the business guy, he would then see if they could work out a deal on the numbers side. So we set very, very clear, very tight standards, because good oils require them if they're going to do their job in health. And then people started getting results, because omega-3s are missing in almost everybody's diet, and people got all kinds of things got better. And then after probably, I think, 2 years, the guys I worked with, they said, oh, this is the best source of both essential fatty acids. And I didn't think that was true, because it's a really good source of omega-3. Like 57% of the oil is omega-3. Okay. 19% is omega-6. That's like a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 times more omega-3. I said, no, I think that's not the best source of omega-6. But I didn't have proof, so I did an experiment on myself. I used flax oil as the only oil in my diet.
Yeah.
And within about 2 or 3 months, I had dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis-like pain in my finger joints, and thin, papery skin. Those are classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. I fixed them by eating sunflower seeds, because they have a lot of omega-6, but no omega-3. And then and because people said, this is complicated, is there one thing that gets me everything good and nothing bad? I then developed a blend that we called Udo's oil.
Okay, fantastic. So
and that has 9 ingredients in it: flax for omega-3, sunflower sesame for omega-6, and it's got evening primrose, rice germ, oat germ, coconut, a little bit of coconut, GMO-free lecithin, and a little bit of vitamin E.
And for those of you listening, you can get Udo's oil anywhere, right? It's now
Pretty much,
ubiquitous.
it's in the fridge in the
It-
supplement section in the health food store. It's in a glass bottle because plastic leaches into oil. So
Mhm.
oils should not be in plastic. And so
And
we put them in
so,
glass with a box around it in the fridge in the supplement section in the health food stores. It's also on
and so
Amazon.
go out and try it, you guys. But I want to now open up the conversation to more broad. You in your career,
Yeah.
you have seen the zigs and zags of health. You've seen the battles between the low carb people,
Yeah.
the high fat. Carb, fat, and protein are the three building blocks of nutrition,
Yeah. The major nutrients. Yeah.
the major nutrients. Now,
Mhm.
I'd like you to speak to that based on your career, and of course, you figured out early on the essential oil, and of course, which is a fat. You've written a book on fats.
Mhm.
Tell us your take on this whole debate: low carb, low fat. Carb, fat, protein. What is your take on ratios between those three for the average person?
Okay, I don't work with numbers because it's different for different people. For instance, when
Yep.
I work out, I don't work out every day religiously like some people do. When
Okay.
I work out more, though, I'm drawn towards more protein because muscle
Yep.
is made out of protein. So you're turning over muscle more. You need more replacement, right? That just makes
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
Between carbs and oils, there are no essential carbs. So that means if you had zero carbs in your diet, you could still live. If you had zero fats, you would die eventually because you wouldn't get any of the essential omega-3 and omega-6.
Yep.
So oils in that sense are more important than carbs. But oils, especially the omega-3, also increases energy levels, increases oxidation rate, increases energy production. And we did a study with athletes where within a month of taking a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of the
Okay.
blend and doing their sport to exhaustion at the
Okay.
beginning before they started, and within 30 days, they had on average 40 to 60% increase in stamina.
Wow.
There is no training program that gets you that. And there are some very high end athletes that are using the oil blend, but they won't tell anybody because when these athletes, because it's so competitive, when they get an
Yeah.
advantage, they don't want anybody to know,
Right.
right? Or as few people
Right.
as possible, right? So we
And
thought they were going to take us to heaven, and they totally didn't do it. They just
they
won
kept it
more medals.
secret.
They won more medals on our oil,
Now,
right?
how do people typically take the oil? Do they turn it into a salad dressing? Do they just drink it? I mean,
Yeah,
how do
no,
people typically
it's
use it?
oils are compatible with all foods. So you can put them in your breakfast, you can put them in your lunch, you can put them on your dinner, you can put them on bread, you don't fry it because the oil is sensitive. You do not, and frying is the worst thing we ever learned to do to our food.
Okay. Okay.
My view is this: the only way to use your frying pan is you pull it out, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the head with it really hard, so it's associated with pain, and get rid of it. Frying is really, 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 really bad, worse than sugar.
Okay.
So the oils have essential nutrients in them. They're also the highest energy molecules. Some people call omega-3s the God molecule because it has so much energy in it. Energy is God, right?
Okay.
Right? Energy is the power. That power is
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you look at carbs, there are no essential carbs, so they're the least important food, but they do provide energy source, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But carbs, if you burn them, they're good fuel. And if you don't burn them, you're going to wear them because they'll turn into fat, and that fat will be stored in your cells. So carbs, in 1980, we started a food pyramid where fats were put on top as the least important nutrient that you should
Yeah.
eat the least of, carbs
Right.
as the most. In 20
Yeah.
years of following that diet, overweight went from 25 to 60% of the population.
Yeah. Yeah. It's upside
And
down.
nobody questioned the food pyramid. When
Yeah.
we came along in 1980, because this started in 1980, we come along oils. We started the oil in 1987. We were basically at the height of carb craze. And
Right.
they had gone from saturated fats, which don't get you the kind of energy that omega-3s do. They said that was the best. And we had a not a weightlifter, an Olympic weightlifter in Vancouver, who used to eat 12 eggs in the morning and all the fat on the steak. And that was his fuel. But then in the 80s, they figured out carbs are actually better fuel than saturated fats. And then we came along in the late 80s and we say, no, actually, the good fats are better fuel than carbs, because carbs will turn on fat burning and turn off fat burning and turn on fat production. And then what happens is you eat too much carbs, you get high blood sugar, you get high insulin. As a result, you get high mood changes. And the insulin drives the excess carbs into the cells where they're turned into fat. And insulin is very good at that. You get low blood sugar. And now you feel like you're going to die if you don't eat. And then you eat more carbs. They take time to digest. By the time your blood sugar is back to normal, you've eaten too much carbs. So you get more sugar in your blood, and literally it becomes an addiction cycle. And some people have said it's 8 times more, that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. 4 times more, different, depends on who you ask. But
I did have a young man on my show from the Ukraine, actually, just a few weeks ago, who overcame several addictions in his life before he became a health coach. And he said that getting off sugar was harder than quitting smoking.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting.
Well, of course, because
that,
when your blood sugar goes down, then your body's screaming at you, eat or die.
Right.
And if you're used to get your blood sugar up with carbs, it's a habit, and it becomes an addiction because of the blood sugar cycle that it puts you on.
So based on this and your experience, tell our users some high-level tips for a good, healthy, balanced diet, in your opinion, from your research. Okay. Maybe a day in the life.
Yeah. Well, a day in the life, I would say that we started the keto diet. We didn't call it that. But what we said to people is dump the carbs, use good fats. Keto is a good diet, but only if you make sure you include in that diet the omega-3 and omega-6 that are essential and that are very sensitive. And that's always a problem. You want to make a diet that doesn't have a shelf life issue, then you make a keto diet that doesn't have the essential fatty acids in it, and you'll lose some weight. Some of it is water. It's not as good as having the essential fatty acids in it, because they actually increase metabolic rate and increase fat burning. And omega-3s actually turn on the fat burning genes and turn off the fat production genes. And so omega-3 is the charm here.
Okay.
And when you eat that way, you don't want to do a oil addition. You want to do an oil substitution. You need to make an oil change. Your body needs an oil change. Bad oils out, good oils in. And when you bring the oils in and make them your major fuels, you need to dump your carbs. If you don't dump your carbs, they'll override the fats and you'll put on weight. So same diet, you'll put on weight. And the difference is whether you lower your carbs or you keep your carbs the same, right? Yeah. Protein you need for muscle. Protein you can use as fuel, but it's not great fuel. Fats are better fuel and carbs are better fuel. And omega-3s are I call them the fat burning fire starter, because they literally actively turn fat burning into gear.
Do you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I don't know. I used to, but I pretty much am on a 8 hours on, 16 hours off. I like the autophagy stuff where your body burns garbage.
Me too.
You give your digestive system time to rest rather than stuffing it all the time.
So do you do 2 meals during those 8 hours then?
Yeah, I don't count the meals. I sort of eat on the run, and I
kind of a grazer.
And I eat largely plant-based whole foods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give us an idea of your first meal of the day. What might that be?
Today, I think today I had 2 oranges at more or less at noon.
Carbs.
Yeah, I eat some carbs. Yeah. I'm not And then I had something else, which I had with a nut butter that has my oil in it, because I dump oils on the nut butters and put my oil in it, because
Okay.
my oil is a better oil from a health
Interesting.
perspective.
Give us an idea of a favorite dinner that you enjoy.
I'm not a recipe guy. I have a fridge full of
Putting you on
stuff,
the spot here.
but I eat seeds and nuts. I eat,
Yeah.
I like them best unsalted and unroasted, because a lot of times when they're rancid,
Yeah.
they roast and salt them, and then you get like bad nutrition. So I
Yep.
eat seeds and nuts. I eat lots of vegetables. I love broccoli, and I dip broccoli in nut butters. That's a nice, and I don't cook. I'm not a cook. I just
A
eat
lot of fresh
tomatoes, fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
Depending on what, more vegetables better than fruit.
Yeah.
And as many
Yeah.
different ones as possible, but not the
No-
starchy ones. I'm not talking about potatoes.
Okay.
I rarely eat potatoes, and
Okay.
I rarely eat grains. I don't have much bread in the house.
No meat.
That's how I get my carbs down.
No
And I
meat.
always have nut butters, and I always have my oil, and I have lots of lots of like broccoli and cabbage and
Cruciferous vegetables.
tomatoes and stuff like that.
Okay. And no meat. You're not a meat eater.
No, not now. I used to
Okay.
eat fish, but fish is
Okay.
now the dirtiest meat on the planet, because
Right,
everything
right.
we've dumped on land goes downhill. Downhill means it goes in the ocean, and in
Yeah.
the ocean, if it's oil soluble, it will concentrate up the food chain. So the fish we
Yeah.
eat are pretty high on the food chain.
Well, listen, I've kept you a long time. It's been fantastic, and we could go on a whole lot longer, but I got to be respectful of your time, and I have one more important question.
Okay.
And that is that I have found for myself and for many people I've talked to that there's often a moment in a person's life, maybe they're at a down point, when something comes along, either a mentor or the right book or the right tip or something hits them at the right time to really make a difference in their life. And I wonder if there's a personal story you'd be willing to share when you have been struggling in one way or another.
Yeah.
But when something has come along that has been the right thing at the right time to help you lift up and get back on track and be successful.
Okay. I'll give you my best story, because that happens a lot. There's a power that moves through the universe that takes care in remarkable ways when people are open to getting taken care of. So what happened is we grew up without religion. We were nominally Lutherans, but nature was our church.
Okay.
And when we asked the deep questions that people turn to religion for, my parents would just say, well, you guys will have to figure it out. You check it out for yourself and you come to your own conclusions. Okay. I really like that they didn't impose anything on us. I really like it.
Okay.
I got to a point where I became interested in why nobody knew my grandfather's name, and he hadn't been dead for 50 years. And I didn't even know his name, because he died before I was born, right? But there were people talking about masters that lived 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago. And so my question was, I don't know why I came up with this question, but it was like, well, why has he already been forgotten? And why are people still talking about these guys way thousands of years later? And so I decided, being in a Christian culture, I would decided to try and understand that. So I got the red letter edition, and you know what that is? Yeah. So everything
the red letter edition of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yes,
everything
I do.
Jesus says
all the words
in
of
red
Christ,
ink, and everything else is in black ink. Because I wanted to know what the master had to say, because this was about, who were these guys, right? And so I put things to the test, like little things that he talks about. And I had these incredible experiences, had insights and magical coincidences. It was really interesting. And then this group came up from California to Vancouver. They called themselves the Jesus People's Army. That should have been a warning to me, because armies, I didn't have good experiences with armies, but I
Right,
sort of
right.
missed that. But I thought,
Yeah.
well, these guys must be doing what I'm doing and trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out. And they've probably learned something and I've learned something, and we'll get together and we'll share it and everybody benefits. So I went to one of their coffee houses and sat down on a chair at a table. And this other guy comes swooping into the chair. And I didn't introduce myself. I just said to them, it must be possible to see God and live. Because we were told as kids, if you see God, you die. And my question was always, well, where's that fair? Right? This is the one you're supposed to be, in touch with. And if you get in touch with him, he kills you. Right? So I said, it must be possible to see God and live. So it was my personal question.
Okay.
And he went ballistic. He said, you're from the devil. You're from the Antichrist. Get out.
Wow.
So I slunk out of there. I'm standing on the sidewalk in the dark. It's in the evening, right? And I said, well, let's see. I haven't seen God. So maybe I'm asking the wrong question. And I got really confused. Really confused. I was really confused because I walked in with my heart completely open, wanting to learn, right?
Yeah.
And I got this, right?
Army guy.
And yeah, the army guy came. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I used to do when the city became too much to me, or I got too fast in my head, I would go in nature, because nature has a pace that's nice, and I would just like chill out in nature. So I hitchhiked to Vancouver Island, West Coast, to a place called Wreck Beach out there. Not the one in Vancouver. That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
And somebody had draped plastic over logs on the beach. So it was like a little dwelling there. There's nobody else on the beach, just me. And I went into the place and I lay down and fell asleep. And in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from dead asleep. And there was a being made of light, standing on a cloud made of light, but the cloud was not as bright as the being. And I couldn't tell if it was male or female or old or young, but a human being in a robe, lit up, unbelievably lit up. And I didn't know what it was. There was no label saying what it was.
Yeah.
But it embodied a message. And it didn't say anything, but I could put words to the message. And the words that I put to that embodiment of that message, I am come not to judge, but to love. I am come not to judge, but to love. And my confusion and my desperation instantly evaporated. I have never had a question since that day of what the central message of the masters was.
Beautiful.
But then I thought about it. It's like, wow, what is this? This isn't stuff like, I wasn't into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What is this? Well, is this like, who was this? Was this the ascended master? Or was this my spirit? Or was this life? And it turns out they're all the same. They're all the same. The life energy is the Christ energy, is the master energy. Life is the master in the body. It weighs nothing, runs everything. It's all-knowing, everywhere present, and all power in the body is life energy. And by the way, comes from the sun. It's solar energy that goes into plants, stored in molecules, stored in bonds between atoms to make molecules. When we eat those as food, those get broken down. That's called metabolism. That energy is released. And guess what is your life? That energy.
How old were you when you had this experience?
It was in 1970, so I was 28.
And that's guided you ever since, that experience. It sounds like it was transformative.
You know what? Coming out of the war and all of the crazy stuff that I had, it literally completely reset my whole being.
Wow.
It killed the past and all of that stuff, because it gave me, it's like, whatever drama and trauma anybody's been through, something inside of them has taken perfect care of them and was not affected by any of the dramas and the traumas. What if we could find
Uh,
our connection with that thing in our life? We'd become pretty strong, right?
yeah.
And there's peace there, and there's unconditional love there, and there's inspiration there, and there's joy there, and there's states of being that exist in every human being. Whatever you call them, it's not what you call them that's important. Because if you call it
Right.
Buddha, it's still true. And if you call it Krishna, it's still true. And if you call it life, it's still true. And if you call it unconditional love, it's still true.
Yeah, those are just
Whatever you call
labels.
that, but there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
presence. And what if you live in the presence of that presence? Then everything in your life begins to work.
I love it.
Because
Well,
because
Udo,
now it's not about me trying to get taken care of. I'm
yeah,
taken care of. If I don't feel taken care of, I just bring my awareness there, because I am taken care of. And then it's not like, what can I get? And it's like, okay, where can I help? It's not about me anymore. I'm taken care of. Where can I help? What needs to be done? What's the biggest splash for good I can make in the time I have on this planet? And that's, by the way, why we're doing this interview.
And I love that quote right there. That's a quote that Shayla, who listens to this episode and will put together the content, Shayla, make sure and capture that quote. So we'll
Yeah.
put that on the blog post that we create about this. Udo,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here and for sharing your most special and unique and spiritually uplifting experience you've ever had.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being willing to come on and do that.
Yeah. Well, it's the best story I have.
Well,
Right?
I
If you
can
want to
see
help, you
why.
got to tell the stories.
And I can sense the transformative nature of it. My parents were children in World War II, and I know that the World War II children, how much they were affected, and if they
Oh
didn't
yeah.
have some experience along the way,
Hmm.
and I think both my parents still are affected from their memories of World War II, and
Yeah.
so I understand how
Yeah.
that is, uh, could shape people's lives. And if you didn't
Yeah.
ever have that uplifting, transformative experience along the
Yeah.
way, I
Yeah.
can see how you're just carrying baggage
Oh yeah.
throughout your
When I
life.
came to Canada, I was 10. I was so tightly wound.
Hmm.
I mean, it was, shy, not so
Yeah.
shy these days, really
Right.
shy, never asked a question in class, in either in high school or in university, because
All the way to university.
I was that shy, not in university. I had lots of questions, but I also tried to answer them myself because I didn't like the focus on me when I was asking the question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was really, really, really inhibited.
Wow.
And and that door just got blown open. I still want to like to know what I'm talking about when I open my mouth, but I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable now. And that literally, it just reset my whole being, my whole story.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Udo, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the show. It's
All
been
right.
so fun to meet you, to hear your story. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to be on my podcast here
Yeah.
today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
It's been fantastic. And for those of you listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.